Hello again. I wanted to put a little video out there about the new Apple M1 chip. Everybody's banging on about it because, you know, when Apple drops some new stuff, like, we all get excited about new technology and new bits and pieces that come out of Apple, and they've been doing an incredible job. Actually, I would say they've been crushing it at live virtual sets and live production in the pandemic better than anybody out there. If you're a company looking to see how to transition from doing physical events to like live events, Apple have got oodles of cash. They've got all of the technology. They've probably got a couple of amazing red cameras, or even something better than that, broadcast quality cameras. And if you watched the recent announcement for the M1 chip for all the new laptops and the Mac Mini, you would have seen the level of production that they're putting into their stuff, especially the transitions where they go between floors. At one point, when they were going between the floors and the different colors, I thought, oh shit, they're going to bring back that whole colored Mac. You remember the laptop and the big bubble? I've actually got one of those bubble Macs, like with the blue back on it, with the colored backs. I thought that was going to happen because they were going through the different colors, and then they came downstairs into the M1. So I want to talk, if everybody's pretty much covered the M1 chip in the last 48, 72 hours. You know what it's like these days on the internet. Something new comes out, everybody disseminates it, everybody pulls it apart, everybody says, you know, why is this slower, why is this maxed out, like yada yada yada, and all of the different disagreements and all the agreements on it, and then all the benchmarks and speed tests come out. There's one area about this new chip that I don't think is being talked about a lot, and it's kind of surprising me, because most of these big tech reviewers, the Marcuses, the Jonathans, the Linuses, as far as I know, they haven't been talking about this. So I wanted to throw it out there because I think it's a really, really important thing to talk about. So something big that happened in the last 6 months with Apple is they bought, I think they acquired it, or they bought into the technology of a Dutch company that has this incredible new way of printing at like 5 nanometers. And so it's incredibly difficult to build machinery to do that consistently and with a low failure rate. So I found this incredible company that does it. As far as I can work out, it's kind of like a blown print. Like they print those billions of transistors onto this like 5 nanometer like PCB board at, like, you know, atom scale kind of thing. It's not atom scale, but you know what I'm saying. And so that in itself is like revolutionary. The second revolutionary thing here is that we're not really talking that much about ARM technology. We're moving away from, we had the PC, Power PC, we had the Intel chips, and now we're to an ARM architecture, which ARM was always going to win, really, because it was always going to have the lowest cost per watt, period. British company, British designer. I'm not sure about where things are sitting with Nvidia buying ARM, or if they actually did buy them, or where all that sits now, or if they bought it back. I have no idea. So those two things are very important. One, 5 nanometer, so we've got a whole new process. 2, ARM architecture. 3, everybody's kind of banging on about the M1 chip itself. This is the first time that we've got a system on a chip, so everything that you would normally have on different chips on a board, you've got it on one chip. There's a lot of benefits to that. One, you can control that silicon yourself. You don't have to rely on the manufacturers. You don't have to necessarily worry too much about drivers and stuff, which actually does break the external eGPU on Apple right now. I don't know if there'll be a way to do that via the I/O pipelines. Maybe it'll be some kind of cludged to get it to work. Maybe there's going to be a better way of doing things like that anyway. Maybe they'll have a dedicated M1 chip, or call it M2, for just like graphics, for extended graphics for gaming. I don't know. We don't know where it's going. I have a few interesting things to put on that. Anyway, the point I wanted to get at today is everybody's covered it. The speed tests are coming out now. People are actually getting blown away by the fact that people are having to adjust their thinking as to what CPUs and memory and systems architecture is today, i.e. bloated. We have to force a lot of stuff at it to make it like, and maybe that's the fault of the drivers, maybe that's the fault of the operating systems, and the chipsets are coming out so fast that, you know, we're trying to keep up with those things. Maybe Apple have seen that and seen into the marketplace, looked at their customer support, looked at all the issues in the industry and gone, actually, for us to have like ownership over the silicon run, for our partnership with another partner, maybe they can't keep up with us. Apple's probably got more money when it comes to AI than other companies has, so they're developing things faster than other companies can adapt their technology to, so it makes sense for them to go with their own silicon. But the biggest thing that I think is not being talked about is security, because we had this big massive thing happen with Intel with their chipsets, with certain chipsets being vulnerable. Now I don't even know if that goes up to the latest i9s and the 10 series, but I suspect it does, or I suspect they've just cludged it somehow, maybe in software, and therefore reducing the speed of your chip. So this is a big deal for me, is that we had this probably about a month or two ago, which got buried, by the way, the issue with the T2 chip, the secure enclave getting hacked and being able to get around that. So I think Apple has solved a whole bunch of things here, and people are not like giving them credit for what they've done. One, they've gone 5 nanometers. Two, they've gone ARM architecture, which low cost per watt. And 3, by bringing everything inside of the chip in terms of like memory management and everything else, you're fixing a whole bunch of security issues. Now I don't know where the M1 chip is going to be in terms of people hacking on the M1 chip in like 3 months time, and that's going to be a major issue if everything is on one chip and somebody finds a way to like break down that whole chip architecture. But this is the thing that sells it for me, is I've been using this iMac for like, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years now. I'm about due an upgrade. I've been looking around at Linux laptops. I've been looking at like ARM architecture. I've been looking at like Raspberry Pi 4s. Can I cluster them? Running Ubuntu on them. But I'm going to miss a lot of my tools that I love on the Mac, and that is like video editing and just tools in general. So ideally I want to stay on a Mac. So the idea of these new M1 capable chipset Macs is very appealing to me, especially when you consider now that on a Mac Air, the new Mac Air that's come out, and even iPhone 12 series, any of the 12 series can edit mobile 4K on the go, which is just mind-blowing. And yet you got all these like nerds and geeks that are complaining about the M1 chip. Oh, you know, it's maximum 16 gig on memory, and you know, I need 32 gig, I need 64 gig. And it got me thinking, well, aren't we jumping the gun a bit, because we haven't actually seen what this chip can do yet, and maybe it's kind of efficient enough that 16 gig is enough. Maybe we've just got used to the idea that things have to have like a super fast chipset, have to be liquid cooled, have to have like 64 gig of memory. Maybe the way that we've been just stuck with this architecture for the last couple of decades is meant that we just assume that we have to add more for it to be more efficient. Now it makes sense to me that if I've got 32 gig of RAM or 64 gig of RAM and I'm using lots of media tools, then I'm going to have more memory space with all those loaded, that I can cache more stuff. But if this chip is like partly efficient and partly, you know, like it can do all that traffic management, if you like, of everything, kind of puts things into kind of cryostasis while you're not working on them, maybe we don't need massive machines of memory, and maybe it's just going to completely disrupt the marketplace. Another thing I want to talk about as well quickly is it got me thinking about what Apple's been doing in the last 2 or 3 series of its phones, and there's 2 main things that stand out to me. One is they're really innovating on camera technology, and they're really innovating on screen technology, although why they haven't put 120 hertz display in there, I don't know. With this new M1 chip, it feels to me, and the MagSafe, by the way, the power on the back, it feels to me that Apple are obsessed with going so thin that it'll just be like a sheet almost. Now, take into fact that we have like 5G, probably have China's just put a satellite up for 6G. We're going to be in a situation where it might be possible to have a whole server rack of these M1 chips. And just imagine having a device that has connectivity a super thin screen, a great camera system. Maybe, I don't know if Apple will ever do modular, but it would make more sense for me to subscribe to a device via Apple, and then if I have no latency at all and I can connect to the cloud, to my dedicated M1 chip in the cloud, a bit like IBM said in the sort of 70s and 80s, that everybody will have this direct connection to a big server farm, and then whenever we needed to upgrade technology, they would do it on their end, we won't have to do it on our end. But that actually seems a little bit more feasible now when we're having like a whole system on a chip. Imagine having a device with that chip in and then building everything around that infrastructure. I think those are the things I wanted to get across there. Interesting that Apple used the M tag for stuff, a bit like BMW with them M series, like M3. Be interesting to see BMW like argue about it when they do get to the M3 version of the chip. What else was I going to say? External GPUs. I don't know if they'll ever fix that. Blurring of the line between tablet and laptop. I feel like with the Air, the new Air that came out, that would be a more capable machine than I've got now, and I could be completely mobile with it, and I wouldn't have all the bloat of like the operating system. I've got like trimmed down operating system, Mac OS, iPad OS even, and I feel like that's just such a stratospheric jump from just like a year or two ago. I just think we've got used to things being bloated and inefficient, and so what we do is we just get the faster chip, the 4000 series or the 5000 series, 6000 series, and then we end up with all these chips on the market, and then we chuck 32 gig, 64 gig, 128 gig, and maybe that approach has been flawed for a long time, because as soon as you start doing that, you end up with like chip makers, memory makers that are making faster RAM, then the manufacturer of the board has to upgrade the firmware, and then you just have like system crashes and then you also have like lots of vulnerabilities. You have like an attack vector surface of all these different infrastructures, where I think what Apple are trying to do is they're trying to hone everything into this one chip so that they know everything that's going inside of that infrastructure. And I think we've blurred the lines of like tablets. I think they've got so far with the 14 series. I think what was the A14Z Bionic. I feel like they got to the Bionic and they were just like, all right, this is where we can take this and we can build this into a laptop. They really focused on the Air first, and I think that's really smart, because there's a lot of people who use the Air for traveling around, for quick writing, doing everything on it. And it sounds like that chip now is as good as the MacBook Pro, which is mind-blowing, and it's at the same price that it was before. So whatever you think about Apple, whatever you think about Mac, I just think it's an interesting chapter of computer technology that we've moved into. They're making amazing screens, they're making amazing cameras. I feel like the M1 is just like their basic iteration of the chip. I can't wait to see what they do in the next couple of years. Another thing I wanted to add to that, I read a article, I think it was last night or the night before that, about a thing called indistinguishability obfuscation, and it's kind of the crown jewel of cryptographic expression, and supposedly these three guys, or two guys and a lady, have found the crown jewel of this cryptographic expression. And if that's the case, then I feel like we're just on the cusp of having devices that are, and also that was quantum protected as well, by the way. I think we're just on the cusp of having these like M1 devices that are going to be in headsets, head-up displays, glasses, AR, VR. It's going to be an interesting next year in technology. I'm definitely going to be picking up the Air, and I will let you know my thoughts on it. But it feels like it's going to remove all of those issues, all of those problems that I used to be concerned about with the Intel chipset, having ARM infrastructure at 5 nanometer. That's like going to be so more efficient. And also like the wattage, I think it uses like 10 watts in just idling, which is crazy to me. So they've built a really super powerful CPU system on a chip, also power efficient, and also more powerful than the version before. I mean, what's not to like? And the price is the same. Like, for somebody who's not a big YouTuber, hasn't got a lot of money, who hasn't upgraded his iMac for 8 years, this is going to be a life changer for me, because all of the different things that I've had go wrong in the last couple of years with my old machine are just going to be eradicated by this new chip. So I'm kind of excited about it. Are you thinking of getting a new Apple M1 enabled chip laptop or a Mac Mini? I'd love to know your feedback on it and what you think about it. I'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Bye.